The woman in the sketches without a face is known as Jane, and she's telling the jury in Sean Combs' trial about hotel nights, her love contract with the rap mogul, and sex she had with male escorts to please him. Plus, we're hearing audio messages that Sean Combs sent to Jane.
You better get on your job. That's all it is.
Diddy completely lost it in court after his former assistant, Jane, came forward and exposed years of abuse, manipulation, and outright violence that had allegedly been taking place behind closed doors for far too long. And when I say lost it, I mean full-on meltdown, yelling, pacing, refusing to sit down. The kind of reaction that only happens when someone knows the truth is no longer theirs to control.
Jane has now spent 3 days on the stand in Sean Combs' racketeering conspiracy and sex trafficking trial. Jane is not the witness's real name, of course. She's being allowed to testify under a pseudonym, and Judge Subramanian has made it clear there will be consequences if people in the courtroom, journalists and creators, reveal her true identity. Now, Jane has often become emotional, crying as she explained how she loved Sean Combs and wanted to make her partner, that's what she called him, happy. She said she only wanted to have sex with Sean Combs, but that's not what happened. And at first, she felt their relationship was great. He love-bombed her, but things changed. Sean Combs has pleaded not guilty to all of the charges he faces, and his attorneys have said he has never sexually assaulted or sex trafficked anyone. Jane's testimony began with Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen Comey showing the jury her driver's license to show them her real name. Jane was then asked what she called Sean Combs, and she responded, Sean, baby, Ernie, Snookums. Comey asked Jane about the term Ernie. She said it sounded like Sesame Street, and Jane said yes. So she was Bert to Combs' Ernie. Jane said she first met Combs on a girls' trip to Miami in late 2020. One of her friends was actually seeing Combs at the time. Jane said he was very nice and hospitable, and she felt drawn to him instantly. She told the jury they ran into each other on his yacht when both of them went to the restroom, and he said, hey, take down my number and let me get your number. That's when the Bert and Ernie nicknames were born. Jane told a story about one of the women on the girls' trip wanting drugs and Sean Combs producing a pink powder. She asked if it was safe, and he said, of course it was, and it was the best. After that trip in November of 2020, Jane said that Sean Combs started pursuing her via text messages. Jane's girlfriend was seeing another man at the time, so she felt more open to seeing Sean Combs. In late January 2021, Jane said she was going to be in Miami, so she agreed to see Sean Combs. She said they had dinner on her hotel balcony, and she said their first date lasted 5 days. Jane said she was open with Sean Combs, that she knew that the father of her child and Combs did not like one another, but she said Combs didn't care about that, and it was okay with him. Now, this first date, she said, lasted 5 days, as I mentioned, and Jane said they made lots of love that first night. They walked on the beach the next day and went to dinner the next night, and by the time she left Miami, she was head over heels in love with Sean Combs. The following month, Jane said she and Sean Combs went to the Bahamas and Turks and Caicos. Jane testified, I remember so many lovely things. It was just really us. And so we just had a lot of connection and a lot of time together. As you would assume, just really passionate about one another, lots of attraction. It was very lust-filled. Comey asked, were you getting a lot of alone time with Sean? Jane responded, yes. Jane really loved that trip. And it was during this trip that Jane said she used ecstasy with Sean Combs, and he was the person who determined how much she took. Jane said the first time she used the ecstasy, she fell on the sand and started throwing it around. And so Christina Courtroom, who's known as KK, and a butler, put her in a shower to calm her senses. Now, the government, you will recall, calls KK a co-conspirator to Sean Combs. Courtroom has denied wrongdoing. I spoke with Mel Smith, a YouTuber, about Courtroom coming up in testimony.
The courtroom went silent. The audience sat frozen. And the mask that Diddy wore for years? It slipped off in seconds. Jane didn't hold back. She spoke with a clarity that cut through the room like a knife. This wasn't some vague accusation. This wasn't a tabloid rumor. This was someone who lived in the shadows of the empire, someone who saw it all from the inside, and finally had enough. She detailed the manipulation, the verbal abuse, the fear that ran through every hallway, every hotel, every mansion. She talked about how violence was not just a possibility in Diddy's world. It was a pattern, Something regular, something planned, and something the public never saw. The moment she started speaking, Diddy snapped. He leaned over to his lawyers, interrupted the proceedings, slammed his hand down on the table. And people in the courtroom said he looked like he was about to explode. He wasn't just reacting like a man denying an accusation.
The most important witness in this case behind Cassandra Ventura, alleged victim number 1, because she makes up individual sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution charges. She helps support the racketeering charge. But you had also the defense really grill a key witness, a woman who claims she was dangled off of a 17-story balcony by Combs. But with the defense cross-examining her, the question becomes, is that true? And the judge, by the way, was none too happy with how Combs was behaving in court. So a lot to get into. We're going to get into it all right now. Let me bring on Law and Crime's in-court reporter, Elizabeth Milner. Elizabeth, so good to see you. Thanks so much for taking the time. As always, I want to get right into the continued cross-examination of Brianna Bongolin. The cross-examination continued by Nicole Westmoreland. This is a key witness. She had testified to being dangled by Sean Combs off of a 17-story balcony. It goes to the pattern of abuse of women for racketeering. If Cassie had seen this or knew about it, it goes to the idea of coercion in sex trafficking. Look at the environment Cassie was around, the violence she was around. Did she really consent to freak-offs when, Combs is around doing all these things? And Bongolin also talked about distributing drugs to Cassie and Combs. Drug charges, underlying predicate crime of racketeering, just goes to the overall environment, the idea of drugs being used during all of this. So Westmoreland really dug in today. And my understanding is she started talking about drugs, threats, and maybe most importantly, Bongolin didn't leave.
Yeah, and so when they continued Brianna, a.k.a. Bonna's cross this morning, Nicole Westmoreland just came out with just exhibits to kind of show her. So, for example, we saw one exhibit. It was an exhibit we had seen while Brianna or Bonna had been testifying under direct, where it showed Cassie and the friend of hers named Bad Boy spelled with an I, no relation to Diddy's Bad Boy, none of that. The photo is from April 24th of 2016 with the caption, "Best Dressed Photographer." And so this was the exact same day that Bonna had accused Diddy of threatening to kill her, saying something along the lines of, "I'm the devil, I could kill you." And so Bonna says it was on or around this day where Diddy had threatened her. So I think what the defense was trying to kind of point out is maybe the dates were wrong. Maybe this didn't happen on this particular day. But then we saw another exhibit photo from May 10th of 2016 from Bonna to Cassie. It's a photo of drugs. Now, Bonna, while she was on the stand today, couldn't say or even remember necessarily what type of drug it specifically was, but just kind of looking at the photo, it definitely was a crystallized substance of something. It kind of had like a brownish, whitish color. I don't want to presume what it was, but you could tell it was definitely drugs, and it was photographed next to a dime. And so Nicole Westmoreland asked Bonna, "You would agree that this was taken after Diddy threatened you?" And Bonna replied, "True. You went on as business as usual with Miss Ventura, a.k.a. Cassie." And Bonna replied, "Yes." Then we saw another exhibit photo from May 31st of 2016. And I think it was a text that accompanied with the line of, "Can I get an amen?" But the photo that went with this particular text message from Bonna to Cassie again, it was a photo showing drugs, I think in her hand or in somebody's hand. And it was drugs like pills that were blue and white. Also, you could see like a powdery white substance. Brianna couldn't verify what particular drugs were in that little baggie that the picture was taken with, but Nicole Westmoreland asked, "You told us at the end of April 2016 that Mr. Combs had threatened your life, but you continued dealing with Cassie. You weren't too scared to do that, were you?" And Brianna replied, "I guess not." And so I think what the defense was trying to point out is even through allegations of threats to Bonna from Diddy or anything like that, that still she continued to have these relationships with Cassie, that she would show up.
He was reacting like a man who just realized the dam had finally burst. That the carefully crafted image, the powerful mogul narrative, the untouchable legend status, all of it was being shattered by someone who had once stood silently beside him. And here's the thing. Jane had receipts. According to reports, she came prepared with emails, texts, internal memos, calendar logs, photos, and voice recordings. All of it pointing to a controlled environment where fear wasn't an exception. It was the rule. She described being forced to cover up incidents. She described being silenced when she raised concerns. She described how Diddy allegedly used his status to intimidate, to threaten, and to isolate anyone who dared speak up. What's even more chilling is how normal she said it all became. According to Jane, this wasn't just about one or two explosive moments. It was about a system, a structure, an entire world built to protect Diddy while keeping everyone else in line. She talked about screaming matches, broken furniture, security being told to look the other way, and victims being paid off or threatened into silence. She painted a picture of a man who ruled his circle through power, fear, and manipulation. And for the first time, the world saw just how deep that control went.
Victim of the sex trafficker, why are you writing praising texts of him? Why are you saying you love him? Why are you encouraging freak-offs or trying to set them up? What were the text messages that Ms. Bongolan was confronted with today?
Yeah, we saw a number of text exhibits. So, for example, we saw an exhibit from October 8th of 2016. It was a text message between Cassie, Bonna, and I believe Deontay, where Cassie had asked them, "You ladies want to come over, have wine, smoke, cooking, sleepover tonight?" And I'm just kind of paraphrasing here. And I believe it was Deontay that had replied, "I was just about to hit you, LOL." And then Bonna responds, "Yeah, we can at like 8. And so Nicole Westmoreland asked, "So you were willing to go back again to that exact same place where this incident had happened, where Diddy allegedly dangled Bonna from that 17th-story ledge off of Cassie's condo?" And Bonna replied, "Yeah." And so then we saw another exhibit photo. It was text between Bonna and Cassie, these ones from October 10th of 2016, where, and again, always paraphrasing here, Cassie in this particular message had wrote, "Coolio, what are you and Friday hungry for?" And Friday was Bonna's then girlfriend. I believe her real name is Sarah, but she had gone by Friday. But then Bonna had responded, "Cool, hit you up later, love ya, Puff wants some." And so when she was talking about this particular Puff wants some, or P wants some, as she had put in this particular message, the defense was trying to point out, okay, well, what are you trying to get P, aka Diddy, as far as a sweatshirt or a t-shirt from, I guess, their clothing line? And so Nicole Westmoreland was like, "So you're asking if he wants a t-shirt or a sweatshirt?" And then Bonna replied, "Well, we had that FaceTime call after the incident. I was trying to be cool." And then Nicole Westmoreland is like, "Well, didn't you tell the government during the FaceTime call that you didn't talk about the balcony incident?" And then Bonna responds that she doesn't remember. So then we saw an exhibit photo from October 15th of 2016. So just a couple days after Cassie and Bonna had talked, and Bonna was asking if Puff wanted a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, Diddy actually messaged Bonna. And again, paraphrasing here, because those text messages go pretty quick, where Diddy said something along the lines of, "When friends get high with each other, they're not supposed to let friends F up." And then he had said something like, "That's real whack." And then Nicole Westmoreland is like, "Well, didn't Mr. Combs want you to stop doing drugs with Cassie?" Something that they alluded to when Cassie was testifying. And Bonna responded, "It was confusing with just everything going on." And so it seemed like she didn't kind of necessarily know why Diddy was texting her and calling her whack and referring to her as being kind of a whack friend and effing up and that type of thing. But it seemed like the defense really was trying to use her own words and her own messages against her. The defense was kind of teasing up this message because they wanted to get it in front of the jury. And it seems like they were able to do that, especially with the whole that Bonna was allegedly real whack for giving Cassie drugs, and something must have happened with the incident of the drugs too.
Yeah, so a couple of things there, right? I mean, if she was dangled off a 17-story balcony, the jury could say, "I think it's kind of odd she's asking if he wants a sweatshirt 2 weeks later." If he's really this sex trafficker and this violent individual who is supplying people with drugs to make them more compliant for sexual episodes, why the concern? Why the concern about the drug use here? And this is what makes
Social media exploded within minutes. Hashtags started trending. People were posting old interviews, clips from past performances, behind-the-scenes footage, trying to piece together the signs they missed. And the more people dug, the more they started to realize this wasn't as sudden as it seemed. There had been signs for years: the temper, the entourage, the silence from former collaborators. And now Jane had finally connected the dots. People who once worked with Diddy, who had stayed silent for years, are reportedly reaching out to Jane's legal team. And while nothing's been confirmed yet, insiders are saying more witnesses are preparing to speak. Jane may have just opened the floodgates. And Diddy knows it. That's why he reacted the way he did. Because this isn't just another scandal. This is personal. This is someone who saw it all, lived it all, and is finally telling the world exactly what she saw. And the most heartbreaking part? Jane admitted that it took her years to feel safe enough to speak. She said she lived in fear for a long time, afraid of retaliation, afraid of being blacklisted, afraid that no one would believe her. But when she saw others stepping forward, when she realized the silence was just empowering more abuse, she decided to put everything on the line. And now that she's spoken, the momentum has shifted. The walls that protected Diddy for decades are cracking. And this time, they may not hold. The legal implications are massive. If what Jane is saying is true, and if others come forward to confirm it, Diddy could be facing serious consequences. This isn't just bad press. This is potential criminal exposure. Investigations could be reopened. Civil suits could pile up. Brands.
She fired and then retained new counsel, which goes into this whole complexity of, was she making legitimate allegations, or were legitimate allegations being made on her behalf? What did they talk about with the lawsuit?
So the lawsuit, which I've read, I've covered this story when it was first filed just last year. And so the defense really kind of got into it with Bonna about this. And so Nicole Westmoreland was like, so you aren't saying that Cassie saw this? And then Bonna is like, well, I don't know. You have to ask her, but I heard her voice. Nicole Westmoreland is like, well, you said you hurt your leg and your neck and your back and you have nightmares and night terrors. You said the injuries in your demand letter weren't accurate. You said that Mr. Combs groped your breast. That was in your letter sent by Tyrone Blackburn, who again, Bonna said that she fired after he was getting information wrong that was sent in the demand letter, but also notably, he's an attorney who represents Little Rod Jones, who also is suing Diddy too. But as far as Nicole Westmoreland, during her line of questioning, she was like, well, is this true or not? And Bonna responds, that's incorrect, about her breasts being groped to the point that it had left bruises on her body. She's asked, you reviewed your lawsuit. Your new civil lawyer said the exact same thing. And Bonna responds, I'm aware. Well, you told the government that Diddy or Puffy grabbed your breast. And then Breonna said, well, I told them where he placed his hands. Then Nicole Westmoreland is like, well, on January 18th of 2024, during your first meeting with the government, you never mentioned that Mr. Combs grabbed your breast. And then Breonna responds, I don't remember. Nicole Westmoreland asks, well, isn't it true your lawyer, that being Tyrone Blackburn at the time, started that rumor and that wasn't true, but you still continued knowing that it wasn't true and you kept on repeating it, even though you knew it wasn't true? And Bonna responds, I can't speak for him, so I'm having a hard time answering. And she was really kind of struggling this morning to kind of answer the questions, to the point where Nicole Westmoreland really kind of had to ask her the same questions in just different forms and fashions. And there were lots of responses of just long pauses, or I can't really speak for this particular person, or I'm having a hard time answering. And then she would ask kind of multiple times, can you re-say it? Can you rephrase this question? And then Nicole Westmoreland just comes out and is like, well, did you believe the only way to file the lawsuit was to say that Mr. Combs sexually assaulted you? And then Bonna responds, I don't recall. And so I think maybe there was a lot of apprehension in just Bonna's answers from today, but I feel like the defense was really kind of pointing out and really kind of showing to the jury that Bonna doesn't necessarily remember all the details, but she's still staying firm that this balcony incident happened, but then the details are wrong, the allegations are wrong. Sometimes in one letter, the dates are wrong, in another letter, the dates are this. And so I think especially towards the end of her cross-examination today, they really kind of honed in on, when did this happen, and are you sure that this incident did happen? It seemed like that's kind of where the questioning was leading up to, especially towards the end of her cross.
And didn't they also confront her with receipts, hotel receipts, to say, you claim Sean Combs is in one location when he might have been in a completely different location?
And so I am myself a receipts-proof timeline type of girl, and that's kind of an ode to Real Housewives. But they did kind of confront Bonna with the receipts and the proof. And so Bonna was alleging that this incident happened on September 26th or 25th of 2016. However, we see one exhibit photo. It's from the Trump Hotel. It's kind of a receipt.
Could walk away. Partnerships could vanish. And fans, the same ones who helped build his empire, could finally turn their backs for good. Diddy's team tried to downplay it, of course. They released a statement denying everything, calling Jane bitter, calling her unstable, accusing her of seeking attention. But that statement didn't land. Not this time. Because Jane came with receipts. Because she spoke calmly, clearly, and without an ounce of fear. And because people are tired of watching powerful men dodge accountability while the people they hurt are told to move on, the backlash is already spreading. Music outlets, celebrities, even former collaborators are starting to unfollow, distance themselves, delete posts. The support Diddy once had is cracking. And if more voices join Jane's, if more stories come to light, the empire he built could collapse from the inside. This is bigger than one courtroom. It's bigger than one assistant. This is about a pattern of power being used not to inspire, not to create, but to control and destroy. Jane didn't just expose Diddy's violence. She exposed the system that enabled it. The people who looked away, the teams that stayed quiet, the culture of silence that allowed it all to continue. And now, that silence is being broken. So stay locked in, because this is just the beginning. If Jane's testimony is the first crack, what follows could be an avalanche. A full reckoning. A long overdue collapse of power structures that have gone unchecked for far too long. Let us know where you stand. Do you believe Jane? Do you think this is the end of Diddy's legacy? Are we finally seeing the truth about someone the industry protected for decades? Drop your thoughts, because this story isn't going away anytime soon. And the next wave might be even bigger than the one we just witnessed.